What is critical thinking and why should we develop this skill? Well, we're going to talk about that coming up right now. Welcome everyone, Michael Finley here with another episode of Leadership Roll Call, where we give you tips, suggestions, and recommendations on how you can become a more effective leader. Our topic today is critical thinking for leaders. Now, I know some of you say, I'm not quite sure what critical thinking is. I think I know, I'm not really sure. Well, let's talk about this. Critical thinking is that mode of thinking where you analyze, assess what's being said. Now, that kind of sounds simple, but a lot of people don't do that. They immediately assume things, they immediately go in there. So critical thinking is that mode of thinking where you hear something and you analyze it, you assess it to see if it's valid. Now, this doesn't mean being cynical or negative about anything you hear. That's not it at all. But it's also where you don't take what someone says at face value. It's not automatically true just because someone else says it. You have a critical eye about whether it's true or not, and you factor through those things through your own analyzation and your own assessment. Now, some people may say, well, I do this all the time. Yeah, not really. There's a lot of people whose critical thinking skills are clouded by emotion. They allow their emotions, whether it's about their family or religion or their favorite sports team, they don't look at things from a critical viewpoint because they'll let emotions cloud their judgment. And then there's those that are just bound and determined that whatever their position is the correct one. It doesn't matter what anyone else says. They're not going to listen to that other person because they are so sure that their position is the correct one. Those people are not applying critical thinking. If an advertiser makes a claim about a product or a politician promises something, there are those that just automatically assume, well, if they said it, it must be true. They're not applying critical thinking skills. And then there's others that are in a group. Whatever the group thinks, they're going to think, whether it's religion or a favorite group. That's not applying critical thinking skills. So critical thinking is not going along with what your emotions say or what the group says or assuming that whatever someone says in authority is true. Critical thinking is taking what's being said and analyzing it and assessing it to see if it's true. Well, the good news is critical thinking is not really a skill that you were born with. It's one that we can work on and develop. It's something that I work on every day. So how do we go about doing that? Well, the first thing you need to have is an open mind. And I know people say, well, sure, I got an open mind, but we need to have an open mind. We need to listen to what other people say. Now, this may go against anything we've thought about. Well, again, let's use religion for the standpoint. If someone goes against your religion, you may immediately shut them down. But critical thinking requires us to have an open mind. It requires us to listen to the viewpoints of others. We may disagree with it, but we want to listen to it. They may not change our mind, but they might. It might, if you're looking for a decision and you listen to someone else's viewpoint, it may change your mind, or you may take a part of that and apply it to what your decision is. So we need to have that open mind. And let's face it, if you have an open mind and you listen to people, people will respect you a little bit more. So we need to have an open mind. Next, we need to question assumptions. So what do we mean by that? I see this every day in business. We'll be in a meeting and someone will say, well, our customers prefer our product because it's the best one out there. And, they don't want a cheap product. Well, that's an assumption. We haven't tested that yet, so we need to test that assumption. And how do you do that? Well, you go and poll your customers or things like that one. But we don't just need to automatically assume something. So we need to make sure that we question assumptions, especially when the stakes are high. Next, we need to apply logic. Now, I know a lot of people say, well, I do this all the time. Some people don't. We let, again, those emotions cloud our judgment. When someone's critical about a family member, we're quick to defend that family member, regardless of what. We're not even listening to what anyone's saying about them. I've seen in a meeting where a project, and everybody knows one group is stalling the project, but that manager of that group is defending themselves, defending their folks. Now, defending your folks is an admirable trait, but when this data shows that this group is slowing down the project, that manager needs to look at the data. He needs to apply logic as opposed to let his emotions rule things. So we need to apply logic. Try to get rid of it. It's horrible. You can't get rid of emotions. but we want to temper them down a little bit, and we want to apply logic as much as we can to ensure good critical thinking. Next, we want to diversify our thoughts. This kind of goes with an open mind, but it's taking it a step further. So what do I mean by that one? You don't want a bunch of yes men. I know there's some people out there that say they do, but you really don't. If you want to come up with the best decision possible, you want to have diversification of thought. You don't want people thinking the same way you do. This is where yes men come through. If, George Patton said, if everyone's thinking alike, then someone's not thinking. So when we're thinking, we want an opposing viewpoint. Again, we may not agree with it, but at least it needs to something we can think about. So when you have a big decision to make sure that you get a diversification of thought. You get someone else with a different viewpoint to chime in. Again, you don't have to go along with it, but at least let's balance it against our own thoughts. So diversification of thought. Critical thinking is hard. It's something we've got to work at every day. But if we have good critical thinking skills, we will make good decisions and we will have good arguments for our decisions. And that's a trait that our bosses always want to have. And it will benefit us greatly if we have good critical thinking skills. So I hope this brief overview was beneficial to you. If you have a question about this topic or any topic you would like to see in the future, please put it below. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our channel. Until next time, good luck with your critical thinking skills.